Sergeant Major Robert Hayes handed me a combat boot at battalion formation, said he found it under my wife's car seat after the family readiness meeting. Standard issue, tan suede, size 11, the left boot. One bootlace was a different color than the other. Someone had replaced it recently. I could feel the weight of it in my hands, 3 pounds of worn leather that smelled like boot polish and something else. Betrayal, maybe, though that's not something you can smell. Not yet. "Sir," Hayes said. His voice was low enough that the 600 soldiers standing at attention behind us couldn't hear. "There's something you need to see, privately. It's about Captain Warren and your wife." The morning was cold for March in North Carolina. I remember that. The kind of cold that makes your breath visible, makes the metal of your combat infantry badge feel like ice against your chest through your uniform. I'd touched that badge out of habit when Hayes approached me, silver rifle on blue fabric, edges worn soft after 24 years. It was ritual. Every morning, every formation, I touched it to remind myself who I was. Lieutenant Colonel James Mitchell, battalion commander, decorated combat veteran, 2 tours in Afghanistan, a man who believed in duty, honor, country. I looked at the boot in my hands, then at Hayes. We'd served together for 15 years. He was 52 years old, had been in the Army longer than some of my soldiers had been alive. His face was carved from stone, but I saw something in his eyes I'd only seen once before, in Kandahar, when we'd lost 3 men to an IED, and he'd had to tell me one of them was his nephew. "Show me," I said. We walked away from the formation, past the battalion headquarters, into my office. Hayes closed the door. The sound of it clicking shut felt final, like the bolt of a rifle chambering a round. He pulled out a clear evidence bag. "I found it last night, sir, after the FRG meeting. Mrs. Mitchell's Accord was parked in the lot. I was doing final sweep before locking up. The boot was under the passenger seat, visible when I walked past." "You're sure it's Captain Warren's?" "Size 11, sir. Same worn pattern on the sole. He reported one missing 2 weeks ago. Said he'd lost it during field training." Hayes paused. "Sir, with respect, boots don't just walk themselves into a commander's wife's car." I set the boot on my desk. It made a dull thud against the wood. The sound echoed in the room, in my chest, in the part of my brain that was starting to understand something I didn't want to understand. "Thank you, Sergeant Major." My voice was steady, military bearing held. "I'll handle this." Hayes looked at me for a long moment. "Sir, you've been my commander for 3 years. Best officer I've served under. Whatever you need." "Dismissed." He left. I sat at my desk and stared at the boot. The different colored bootlace, the worn sole, the smell of it. And then I did what any intelligence officer would do. I started gathering evidence. The house was quiet when I got home that evening. Catherine was in the kitchen, her burgundy family readiness group binder spread across the table. That binder was her life. 3 inches thick, heavy enough to be a weapon, stuffed with contact sheets and event photos and printed emails. She carried it everywhere, used it like a shield. The dog tags around my neck jingled when I walked in. They always did. 2 steel tags on a chain, James Mitchell, Lieutenant Colonel, blood type O positive, Presbyterian. I'd worn them for 24 years. In the shower, in bed, on the battlefield. They were warm from my body heat, clicked together with every step. Clink, clink, clink. Catherine looked up. "You're late." Battalion meeting ran over. I set my cover on the counter. "How was the FRG thing?" "Fine." She went back to the binder, highlighting something in yellow. "Same as always. Spouses complaining about deployment schedules, asking when housing maintenance will fix things, you know." I did know. I'd been married to a military spouse for 21 years. I knew what the life cost. The moves every 2 years, the deployments, the constant uncertainty, The way Catherine had given up her career as a teacher because we could never stay in one place long enough for her to build seniority. But I also knew something else now, something I'd spent the afternoon confirming. "Where'd you park last night?" I asked, casual, just making conversation. She didn't look up. "What?" "At the FRG meeting. Where'd you park?" "I don't know, James. In the lot. Why does it matter?" "Just curious." I opened the refrigerator, pulled out a beer I didn't want. "Sergeant Major Hayes mentioned he saw your car, said you were one of the last to leave." Now she looked up. "Is there a problem?" "Should there be?" Her phone buzzed on the table, once, twice, 3 times. She glanced at it, then at me, then back to the binder. "It's just FRG business. At 7 p.m.? Some spouses need support at night, James. When their husbands are deployed, when they're lonely." She said it with an edge, like the word lonely had teeth. "You know, maybe if you'd been here more over the past 21 years, you'd understand what it takes to run an FRG. Her voice was cold, not angry, cold. Like she'd already decided I was the enemy and she was just waiting for me to figure it out. The dog tags clinked when I set the beer down. Clink, clink. She'd always hated that sound. Said it reminded her I was military first, husband second. Said it was like living with a ghost who was always preparing for war. She was right. I was always preparing for war. I just didn't know the war had already started in my own home. The next morning, I went to base security. The checkpoint office was small, cramped, smelled like burned coffee and thermal printer paper. 3 soldiers staffed it on rotating shifts, logging every vehicle that entered and exited through the main gate. Military protocol. Everything tracked, everything recorded. "Sir." The specialist on duty straightened when I walked in. "Can I help you?" "I need to review gate access logs past 6 months." "Specific vehicle, sir?" I gave him Captain Bradley Warren's truck information. License plate NCF 4892. Chevy Silverado, black. The specialist pulled up the database, printed the results. The paper curled at the edges as it came out of the thermal printer. Cheap stuff that faded in sunlight, crinkled when you handled it. I could feel the slight texture of the text, like braille almost. Column after column, date, time, vehicle ID, destination. I scanned down the list. My hands started shaking somewhere around entry number 10, Bradley Warren's truck. Entered gate at 21:47 hours. Destination Cedar Lane, married housing. My street, again, 22:19 hours. Cedar Lane, again, 2303 hours. Cedar Lane, again. 32 entries total, all during my 6-month deployment to Afghanistan, all between 2200 and 0200 hours, all to my street. I gripped the printout hard enough that the paper crumpled. The specialist pretended not to notice. "Thank you," I managed. My voice sounded far away. "I need copies of these." "Yes, sir. How many?" "All of them." I found her in the Officers Club parking lot. Hannah, my daughter, 24 years old, brand new second lieutenant, fresh out of commissioning. She had my eyes and her mother's dark hair and a determination that made me proud every single day. She was carrying that pink wedding planning binder, the one she'd been hauling around for 8 months, ever since Captain Bradley Warren proposed to her. 4 pounds of magazine clippings and ribbon bookmarks and dreams. She clutched it against her chest when she saw me approaching. "Dad." She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "I'm meeting Mom for lunch. Did you need something?" I needed a lot of things. I needed the past 24 hours to be a nightmare. I needed the boot and the access logs to have some other explanation. I needed my daughter not to be marrying a man who'd been sleeping with her mother. "Hannah, we need to talk about Bradley." The smile disappeared. "Not this again." "Just listen." "No, Dad, you listen." She shifted the binder to one hand, and I could see her commissioning sword hanging from her belt. The ceremonial saber I'd given her at her ceremony 2 months ago. Polished steel, leather-wrapped grip. engraved with her initials and the words, duty, honor, country. You've been deployed my entire life. You missed my high school graduation. You missed my college graduation. You were in Afghanistan when I got commissioned, and if it wasn't for Aunt Patricia pulling strings, you would have missed that too. Hannah, Bradley was there, Dad. He showed up. He supports me. He loves me. And you... Her voice cracked. You're just jealous that Mom finally has someone who appreciates her, someone who doesn't treat her like a duty station wife. There were 12 other junior officers on that patio, all of them watching, all of them seeing their battalion commander's daughter tell him off, all of them probably thinking she had a point. Maybe she did. I had been gone. I had missed things. I had prioritized the Army over my family for 24 years because that's what officers did. That's what the mission required. But I'd never lied. I'd never betrayed. I'd never looked Catherine or Hannah in the eye and told them I loved them while I was desecrating everything that word meant. Bradley told me you'd do this, Hannah said. Her voice was quieter now, harder. He said you'd try to sabotage the wedding. He said you couldn't handle Mom finally being happy with someone else. Someone else. The words hung there between us in the parking lot, in the space where my daughter used to trust me. Hannah, I said carefully, your wedding is in 10 weeks, Memorial Day weekend, 200 guests, most of them from this base. If something's wrong, if Bradley isn't who you think he is, don't you want to know now? She looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was the enemy she'd been trained to recognize and eliminate. You're unbelievable. She turned away. Stay out of my wedding, Dad. Stay out of my life. And maybe work on your own marriage before you start judging other people's relationships. She walked into the club. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like the safety coming off a weapon. I stood there in the parking lot holding access logs that proved my wife was sleeping with my daughter's fiance, and I realized something. Hannah had already chosen sides, and she'd chosen wrong. I waited 2 days before confronting Catherine. 2 days of pretending everything was normal. 2 days of reviewing evidence. 2 days of hoping I'd find something that proved I was wrong. I didn't find it. Instead, I found something else. Margaret Collins stopped by the house on Wednesday evening. She was Catherine's best friend, military spouse, married to a captain in another battalion, had known Catherine for 15 years. They'd been through 4 deployments together, 6 different duty stations, countless FRG meetings and coffee dates, and the shared experience of being married to the Army. She knocked on the door while Catherine was in the shower. I answered. Jim. She looked nervous. Is Kath here? Upstairs, come in. She did, but she didn't sit, just stood in the entryway, shifting her weight from foot to foot. Her hands were twisting together once, twice, 3 times. I'd seen that gesture before, in interrogation rooms, when someone knew something they didn't want to know. Margaret, what's wrong? Nothing, She stopped, looked at me, really looked at me. Jim, how long have we known each other? 15 years. And in 15 years, have I ever lied to you? No. She took a breath. I need you to know that I love Catherine. She's my best friend. But I can't... Another breath. I found something yesterday, in her jewelry box. We were sorting through old things for a charity drive, and I saw... She opened her hand. In her palm was a battalion challenge coin. Bronze, 2 ounces of solid metal. The battalion insignia raised on one side, integrity first engraved on the other. The edges were worn smooth from handling. I knew that coin. I'd given dozens of them to soldiers over the years, including one to Captain Bradley Warren 8 months ago at his welcome ceremony. I'd shaken his hand and said, "Welcome to our brotherhood." She kept it in her jewelry box, Margaret whispered, next to her wedding ring. I asked her what it was. She said... Her voice broke. She said Bradley gave it to her. She said it was their inside joke. If you've ever had that moment when the evidence is right there in front of you, but your mind refuses to believe it, just type denial in the comments. That's where I was. Staring at 32 gate access entries and a combat boot, and now a challenge coin, and still hoping there was some other explanation. But there wasn't. Catherine came downstairs in her bathrobe, saw Margaret, saw the coin in her hand. "Margaret, what are you—" "How long?" I asked. My voice was calm, controlled. Battalion commander voice. "How long have you been sleeping with Bradley Warren?" She went pale. Actually pale. All the blood drained from her face in a way that would have been comical if my entire life wasn't disintegrating. "Jim, I can explain." "How long?" Margaret made a soft sound and backed toward the door. "I should go." "Stay." I didn't take my eyes off Catherine. "You brought me evidence. You're a witness now." "How long, Catherine?" She pulled the bathrobe tighter. "You're being paranoid. Bradley is a friend. He's Hannah's fiancé, for God's sake." "I have gate access logs. 32 entries, all during my deployment, all late at night, all to our street." I stepped closer. "I have his boot. Sergeant Major Hayes found it under your car seat. And now I have his challenge coin, the one I gave him, the one with integrity first engraved on it, the one you kept in your jewelry box next to your wedding ring." She didn't say anything, just stood there, trapped between denial and confession. "How long?" I asked again. 8 months, she whispered. The number hit me like shrapnel. 8 months. Since May, since 2 months after Bradley Warren arrived at my battalion, since 1 month after he proposed to my daughter. "And Hannah knows?" "No, of course not. Jim, she can't know. The wedding, I laughed. Actually laughed. It sounded wrong coming out of my mouth. "Catherine, our daughter is about to marry a man who's been sleeping with her mother for 8 months. You don't think she deserves to know?" "It would destroy her." "It should destroy her. It should destroy all of us. That's what betrayal does." Margaret was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. "Kath, you told me it was just lunch. You said you were helping him adjust to the base." "It was at first." Catherine's voice was defensive now, getting harder. "But Jim was gone. He's always gone. And Bradley, he actually sees me. He appreciates me. He—" "Don't." I held up a hand. "Don't make this about me being deployed. Don't you dare make your affair my fault." "Isn't it, though?" She was angry now, too. Good. Anger I could work with. 21 years, Jim. 21 years of moving every 2 years, of sleeping alone, of raising Hannah by myself while you were off playing soldier. You want to talk about betrayal? You betrayed me first. You chose the army over me every single day for 21 years. I could have argued, could have pointed out that I'd kept every vow, that I'd sent money, that I'd called when I could, that I'd never once looked at another woman the way she'd apparently looked at Bradley Warren. But there was something else, something that had been nagging at me since I found the boot. "You've been tired lately," I said quietly. "Nauseous in the mornings. I thought it was stress from the wedding planning." She froze. "Catherine." My voice was very soft now, very controlled. "When did you start taking prenatal vitamins?" "What?" "The orange prescription bottle in the bathroom cabinet. I saw it last week. Thought it was odd, but I didn't—" I stopped. Looked at her, really looked at her. "How far along are you?" Margaret made a sound like she'd been punched. Catherine's hand went to her stomach, protective, instinctive. 4 months, she whispered. 4 months. I'd been back stateside for 8 weeks, home from deployment for 2 months. We'd had sex exactly 3 times since I got back. Duty sex, maintenance sex, the kind of sex that happens in a dying marriage because you're supposed to want each other even when you don't. "Catherine," I said, each word came out separately, distinctly. "I was deployed for 6 months. The prescription date on those vitamins is 4 months ago. I've been back 8 weeks. The math was simple, brutal, undeniable. Whose baby are you carrying? She looked at Margaret, at me, at the challenge coin still in Margaret's hand, and then she said the stupidest thing she could have said. It's yours, Jim. Of course it's yours. I pulled out my phone, opened my photos, found the one I'd taken that morning, a copy of my medical records from 3 years ago, pulled up the screen, showed it to her. I had a vasectomy, I said quietly. 3 years ago, you were with me. You signed the consent forms. You held my hand in the recovery room. Her face went from pale to gray. So, I'll ask you one more time, Catherine. Whose baby are you carrying? Bradley's? Or should I start wondering how many other men have had access to my house while I was deployed? She couldn't speak, couldn't move. Just stood there with her hand on her stomach and her mouth open and no words coming out. Margaret was the one who broke the silence. Oh my God, Kath, she breathed. What have you done? Margaret left 20 minutes later, drove away in her minivan with the challenge coin still in her pocket and her phone already out, probably calling her husband, probably telling him everything. Catherine locked herself in the bedroom. I sat in my office, the small room off the kitchen that I'd converted into a workspace, and held my father's memorial flag. The one they'd given my mother when he died in Iraq. I was 14 years old when they presented it to her, folded in that perfect military triangle. Now it sat in a shadow box on my desk, surrounded by his medals. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Combat Infantry badge, just like mine. He died serving with integrity, and I was about to destroy my family to honor his memory. The flag's glass case was cold against my palm. I could see the flag fabric through the triangle gaps, red, white, and blue, perfectly folded, untouched for 31 years. What would you do, Dad? I whispered to the empty room. The flag didn't answer, but I already knew. He would have done exactly what I was about to do. He would have chosen honor, even if it cost everything. Catherine's counteroffensive began the next morning at the FRG meeting. I didn't know about it until Specialist Chen from the admin office mentioned it during afternoon reports. She was careful, diplomatic, but I could see the concern in her eyes. Sir, there's some talk among the spouses about... She stopped, started again. Mrs. Mitchell spoke to the FRG this morning. She expressed concerns about your stress levels from deployment. She mentioned PTSD. She suggested that you might be experiencing paranoid delusions. The words landed like mortar rounds. She said that? Not exactly those words, sir, but that was the implication. She talked about how hard deployment has been on you, how you've been acting differently since you got back, how you've been making accusations that don't make sense. Chen looked miserable. Sir, the spouses are worried. They're asking if you're fit for command. Of course they were. Catherine was smart. She'd spent 21 years as a military spouse. She knew how the game was played. She knew that a commander with PTSD was a liability. She knew that if she could paint me as unstable, everything I said about her would be dismissed as the ravings of a broken soldier. She was using my service against me, using my 2 tours, my nightmares, the invisible scars I'd carried home from Afghanistan. She was weaponizing my trauma to cover her betrayal. Thank you, Specialist Chen, I said. My voice was steady. Dismissed. She left. I sat at my desk and stared at the burgundy FRG binder Catherine had left in my office 2 days ago, still sitting on the corner of my desk, still stuffed with contact sheets and event photos. I opened it, started flipping through the pages, and there on the back of one of the contact sheets, in handwriting I didn't recognize, "Can't wait to see you tonight." B. The paper rustled as my hands shook. She'd been passing notes, like high school, while coordinating care packages for deployed soldiers' families, while leading grief counseling for widows, while standing at the front of meetings talking about military values and supporting our troops. She'd been passing notes to the man sleeping with her, the man engaged to her daughter. I pulled out my phone, Called the only person I trusted to handle this the right way. JAG Office, Major Rodriguez speaking. Major Elena Rodriguez was 38 years old, sharp as a bayonet, and had prosecuted more UCMJ violations than anyone else on base. She'd made major at 35, fast track, and had a reputation for being fair but uncompromising. She met me in her office at 1600 hours. The legal clerk was already gone for the day. Just us and the thick UCMJ manual on her desk, and the weight of what I was about to set in motion. Sir, she gestured to a chair. Your message said this was urgent. I handed her the evidence, all of it. The gate access logs, photos of the boot, Margaret's statement about the challenge coin, the prenatal vitamin prescription, my vasectomy records. She went through it methodically, page by page. Her expression never changed. When she finished, she set the papers down and looked at me. Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell, she said carefully, what you're describing are potential violations of Articles 133 and 134 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Conduct unbecoming an officer adultery. If substantiated, Captain Warren could face court-martial. I understand. Your wife would lose her position as FRG leader. She'd lose base privileges. Depending on the divorce settlement, she could lose spousal benefits. I understand. And Second Lieutenant Mitchell, your daughter. Elena's voice softened. Sir, she's engaged to Captain Warren. If you file this report, she'll have to choose, publicly, in front of the entire battalion. I looked at the UCMJ manual on her desk, the one that governed military justice, the one that said officers would be held to a higher standard, the one that said integrity mattered. Major Rodriguez, I said quietly, if you file this report, there's no going back. Is that what you said? Yes, sir. Then file it. She studied me for a long moment. Sir, I have to ask, are you certain there are other options? Quiet resolution, counseling, transfer requests that could separate Captain Warren from your battalion without formal charges. Options that would protect your daughter. No. My voice was firm. Captain Warren violated the UCMJ. He had an affair with his commanding officer's wife. He did it while engaged to my daughter. He did it knowingly, deliberately, and repeatedly. And if I cover that up, if I choose quiet resolution to protect my daughter's feelings, then what am I? What does my rank mean? What does any of this mean? I touched the combat infantry badge on my chest. The metal was cold through my uniform. I swore an oath, I said, to support and defend, to bear true faith and allegiance, to obey the orders of the President and the orders of the officers appointed over me. But I also swore to lead by example, to uphold the values we claim to serve, duty, honor, country. Those aren't just words, Major. They're supposed to mean something. Elena nodded slowly. I'll prepare the paperwork, but sir, you should know. The investigation will take weeks, maybe months. Your promotion board is in 6 weeks. If this becomes public before then it becomes public. Sir, file the report, Major. That's an order. She opened her laptop, started typing, and I sat there and watched my career, my marriage, and my relationship with my daughter all get fed into the legal machinery that would grind them to dust. Because sometimes duty means losing everything to do what's right. Margaret came to my office 3 days later. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red. Her hands were shaking when she sat down. Jim, I need to tell you something. Her voice was hoarse. I've been lying. Not about the challenge coin, that's true, but about the timeline. I waited. She said 8 months. Catherine said 8 months, but it's been longer. Margaret's hands twisted together. Once, twice, 3 times. I covered for her, Jim. Last summer, 14 months ago, she told me she was going to a conference in Charlotte. Asked me to tell you she was with me if you called. I thought she was just taking a break. Needed space. I didn't think 14 months. She met him at an industry conference for military family support coordinators. Bradley was there representing his last battalion. She stopped, took a breath. She told me later, when it started getting serious, she made me promise not to tell anyone. She said you didn't love her anymore, that you'd been gone so long you were basically roommates. She said, Margaret was crying now, full sobs. She said Bradley made her feel alive again, made her feel seen, and I believed her, Jim. I believed that you'd neglected her for so long that she deserved something good, someone who paid attention. She looked at me with devastated eyes. But then he proposed to Hannah, and Catherine didn't end it. She kept seeing him, and I realized this wasn't about being lonely. This wasn't about you being deployed. This was something else, something wrong. But I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to tell Hannah, so I kept quiet. I covered for her. I'm so sorry, Jim. I'm so sorry. The challenge coin was on my desk. Margaret had given it to me that first night. I picked it up now, felt the weight of it. 2 ounces of bronze. Integrity first, engraved on the back. He gave her the challenge coin, I said quietly. The one I gave him at his welcome ceremony. I told him it was a symbol of our brotherhood, that we take care of each other, that we hold ourselves to a higher standard. She kept it in her jewelry box, Margaret whispered, next to her wedding ring. She told me, her voice broke. She told me it was their inside joke, taking your brotherhood coin while taking your wife. She laughed when she said it, Jim. She thought it was funny. I set the coin down. It made that distinctive ring against the desk. Not quite a bell, deeper, hollow. Thank you for telling me, I said. I know it wasn't easy. I should have told you sooner, 14 months ago, before any of this. You were being a good friend. Loyalty matters. I looked at her. But so does truth. And sometimes you have to choose which one matters more. She nodded, wiped her eyes. Jim, what are you going to do? I thought about the JAG report sitting on Elena Rodriguez's desk, about the investigation that would start in 72 hours, about my daughter who hated me and my wife who'd betrayed me, and the man who'd made a mockery of everything I believed in. I'm going to do what my father would have done, I said. I'm going to choose honor. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went to my office at 0200 hours, sat at my desk in the dark, and I pulled out the deployment care package checklist. It was lined notebook paper, Catherine's handwriting in blue pen, list of items she'd sent me every month during my deployment, protein bars, wet wipes, coffee, letters, photos of Hannah, small things that made Afghanistan feel less like the end of the world and more like I had something worth coming home to. I'd kept the checklist in my desk drawer, carried it with me sometimes, read it when the mortars were falling, and I needed to remember why I was there, why it mattered. March 15th, I read aloud, Catherine's handwriting. Sent care package number 3, included your favorite coffee. Stay safe. Love always. I opened my laptop, pulled up the gate, access logs, scrolled to March 15th, Bradley Warren's truck, entered gate at 22:47 hours, Cedar Lane, exited at 02:03 hours. She'd sent me a care package that day, told me she was missing me, told me to stay safe, told me she loved me. And that same night, while I was in Afghanistan dodging mortars and leading soldiers and trying to build something that would last, Bradley Warren's truck was at our house until 2 in the morning. I checked another date, April 3rd, care package number 4. Gate logs, Bradley Warren, 22:15 hours to 01:45 hours. May 22, care package number 6. Missing you so much, counting days until you're home. Gate logs, Bradley Warren, 23 hours to 0237 hours. Every single care package. Every single I love you and stay safe and come home soon. She'd been sleeping with him while packing boxes for me, while writing me letters, while pretending to be the faithful military spouse waiting for her husband to come home. The paper crumpled in my hands. The care package list. The one I'd kept as a reminder that I had something worth fighting for. I couldn't breathe. Actually couldn't breathe. My chest was tight, and the room was spinning, and the dog tags around my neck were strangling me. And, "Sir?" I looked up. Sergeant Major Hayes was standing in the doorway. Still in uniform, even though it was past 0200. He must have seen the light in my office from the parking lot. "Sir, are you—" He stopped, saw my face, saw the papers in my hands. Jesus, Jim. He never called me by my first name. Never. Not in 15 years. He came into the office, closed the door, sat in the chair across from my desk. "Talk to me," he said. So I did. I showed him the care package list, showed him the gate access logs, showed him the dates lining up, perfectly, deliberately, cruelly. She sent me packages while he was... I couldn't finish the sentence. Every month, every goddamn month. Stay safe, love always. And he was. My voice broke, actually broke. For the first time since Afghanistan, for the first time since I watched 3 soldiers die from an IED, for the first time in 15 years of military service, I broke. Hayes came around the desk, gripped my shoulder hard, the way you grip a brother in arms when words aren't enough. "Sir," he said quietly, "I've known you for 15 years, served under you in Kandahar, watched you lead 600 soldiers through hell and back. You're the best officer I've ever known." He paused. "Some wounds don't show up on the casualty report. This one's worse than anything that happened in Afghanistan." I nodded, couldn't speak. "What are you going to do?" I looked at the care package list, at the gate access logs, at the dates that proved my wife had been sending me love letters while betraying me in the most intimate way possible. So here's where I was. I had the evidence. I could file the report, honor the code I'd sworn to uphold, but destroy my daughter's wedding and my career. Or I could stay quiet, protect Hannah from the truth, keep the peace, but violate everything I believed in. If you were me, would you file the report, type honor? Or would you keep it quiet to protect your family, type family? What would you do? I know some of you are typing family, I understand. Hannah was my world. But every time I looked at my father's memorial flag, at the Bronze Star and Purple Heart, and the promise he'd kept to serve with integrity even when it cost him everything, I knew what I had to do. "I'm filing the report," I said. "Tomorrow, full UCMJ investigation, no matter what it costs." Hayes nodded. "Then I'm with you, sir, all the way." Hannah came to see me 4 days later. I was reviewing battalion reports when she walked into my office. She was in uniform, crisp, professional. She'd learned from the best how to wear the uniform with pride, but her face was hard, closed, the way soldiers look when they're about to do something that hurts. "Dad," she didn't sit. "We need to talk." "I'm listening." "Mom told me you filed a report against Bradley with JAG." "I did." "She says you're having some kind of breakdown, that deployment messed you up, that you're making accusations that don't make sense." "Hannah." "No." Her voice was sharp, command voice. "You don't get to interrupt me, not this time." She set something on my desk. Her commissioning sword, the one I'd given her 2 months ago, polished steel blade, leather-wrapped grip engraved with her initials. HM, duty, honor, country. The sword made a metallic clatter against the wood, like everything breaking at once. "You gave me this," she said. Her voice was shaking. "You told me to carry it with honor. You told me it represented everything the Army stands for. Duty, honor, country, integrity, courage." "Hannah." "But I defended her, Dad." Tears were running down her face now. "I defended someone who you say has no honor. I chose Bradley over you. I chose Mom over you. And if you're right, if you're actually right about this, then I'm not worthy of this sword." She looked at me with devastated eyes. "And maybe you're not either. Maybe you abandoned us for 24 years and now you're mad that we found someone who actually showed up. Maybe you're destroying my wedding because you can't stand that mom finally has someone who loves her more than the army loves you. There were 30 soldiers in the battalion headquarters building. All of them could probably hear this. All of them watching their battalion commander get torn apart by his own daughter. I stood up, walked around the desk, picked up the sword. "Baby girl," I said quietly, "take this back." "No." "Take it back." I held it out to her. "You were protecting your mother. That's what good daughters do. You were being loyal to the man you love. That's what good officers do. You were choosing family over accusations from a father who hasn't earned your trust. That's what anyone would do." "Then why does it feel like I betrayed you?" "Because you're starting to see the truth," I said gently, "and the truth is going to hurt. It's going to hurt worse than anything you've ever felt. But you need to feel it. You need to see it. Because if you marry Bradley Warren without knowing who he really is, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering." She looked at the sword in my hand, at me, at the combat infantry badge on my chest that I'd touched out of habit when she walked in. "I can't take it back," she whispered. "Not until I know, not until I understand." She turned and walked out. The sword was heavy in my hand, 2.5 pounds of polished steel and broken promises. I set it on my desk next to the care package list and the gate access logs and the challenge coin and all the other evidence of everything that had been destroyed. Lieutenant General Patricia Thornton called me to her office the next morning. She was 58 years old, base commander, my mentor for the past 6 years. She'd been the one who recommended me for battalion command, the one who'd pushed for my promotion to colonel, the one who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. "Jim," she gestured to a chair. Her voice was tired. "I heard about the JAG report." "Yes, ma'am." "I also heard about your promotion board. It's in 4 weeks now, moved up from 6. "Yes, ma'am." She leaned back in her chair, studied me. "Jim, I'm going to be direct. Your promotion to colonel is being delayed, pending resolution of your family situation." The words landed like a grenade. "Ma'am, the board has concerns about your judgment, about your stress levels, about whether you're fit for increased responsibility given the allegations you've made." She held up a hand. "I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying the optics are bad. Your wife is telling people you're experiencing PTSD. Your daughter is publicly siding with Captain Warren. And now you filed a formal UCMJ complaint that, if proven false, could end your career." "It's not false." "I believe you." Her voice softened. "But belief isn't evidence. And until the investigation concludes, until we have concrete proof, the board can't move forward. You understand that?" I understood. I understood that everything I'd built for 24 years was being put on hold because I'd chosen to tell the truth. I understood that my wife's lies were more believable than my evidence. I understood that honor had a cost, and I was paying it. "Ma'am, my father died in Iraq." I looked at her. He was killed by an IED during his 3rd tour. I was 14 years old. They gave us his memorial flag and his medals and the promise that he died serving with integrity. I pulled out my phone, showed her the photo of the flag on my desk, the shadow box with his bronze star and purple heart. "That flag sits on my desk every single day for the past 6 years, and every time I look at it, I remember what he taught me. That rank doesn't matter. That career doesn't matter. That the only thing that matters, the only thing worth dying for, is keeping your word." I put the phone away. I swore an oath, General, to support and defend, to bear true faith and allegiance, to uphold the values we claim to serve: duty, honor, country. I touched the combat infantry badge on my chest. My father kept that oath until it killed him. I won't dishonor his memory by covering up UCMJ violations, even if it costs me everything I've worked for, even if it cost me my promotion, even if it cost me my daughter. Patricia Thornton looked at me for a long moment. Then she stood, came around the desk, and did something I'd never seen her do in 6 years. She saluted me. Not the casual salute between officers, the full formal salute, the one reserved for ceremonies and moments of profound respect. "Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell," she said quietly, "your promotion is delayed, but your integrity is intact. And in 30 years of service, I've learned that the second one matters more." She dropped the salute. "The investigation will take 4 to 6 weeks. Major Rodriguez will keep me updated, and Jim," her voice gentled, "whatever happens with your family, whatever happens with your career, you made the right choice. Your father would be proud." I left her office with my promotion on hold, my daughter gone, my wife spreading lies, and my career hanging by a thread. But I still had my integrity. And sometimes that has to be enough. The divorce papers were simple, clinical. 21 years of marriage reduced to legal terminology and property division. I filed them on a Tuesday morning. Major Elena Rodriguez had the UCMJ investigation paperwork ready at the same time. 2 sets of documents, 2 different systems of justice, both aimed at the same truth. "Sir," Elena slid the papers across her desk. "Once you sign these, the investigation becomes official. Captain Warren will be notified within the hour. He'll have 72 hours to respond. After that, we convene a preliminary hearing to determine if there's sufficient evidence for court-martial." I signed. My hand was steady. The pen made that scratching sound against paper, the same sound I'd heard at my commissioning 24 years ago when I signed my oath, when I promised to support and defend. "What happens if he fights it?" I asked. "He can request court-martial, make us prove the charges in front of a military judge. But given the evidence, the gate logs, the witness statements, the physical evidence," she gestured to the stack of documents, "his lawyer will advise him to resign, accept an other than honorable discharge, avoid the publicity of a trial. And if he doesn't, then we go to trial, and everyone, including Second Lieutenant Mitchell, testifies under oath." I thought about Hannah, about her wedding dress hanging in her apartment, about the 200 invitations she'd sent, about the way she'd looked at me when she laid her sword on my desk. "File it," I said. Elena typed something on her computer, hit send. "It's done," she said. "Captain Warren's chain of command has been notified. This is official now, sir." The legal machinery was in motion, grinding forward, unstoppable. I walked out of the JAG office into the spring sunshine and wondered if I'd just saved my daughter or destroyed her. Sarah Brennan came to my office 4 days later. She was Hannah's roommate, 25 years old, second lieutenant, military intelligence officer. I'd met her twice, once at Hannah's commissioning, once at a battalion function. She seemed smart, steady, the kind of officer who thought before she spoke. She knocked on my doorframe. "Sir, do you have a minute?" "Come in, Lieutenant." She closed the door behind her. She was carrying a folder, thick. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Sir, I don't know if I should be here, but I..." She stopped, started again. "Hannah is my friend, my best friend, and I think she's about to make the worst mistake of her life." I waited. "She won't listen to me. She won't listen to you. She's convinced that you're lying, that you're trying to sabotage her wedding because you can't handle..." Sarah stopped, took a breath. "But sir, I have access to the battalion's administrative systems. I'm intelligence. I see things." She set the folder on my desk. "This is everything. Gate access logs with detailed entries. Witness statements from soldiers who saw Captain Warren and Mrs. Mitchell together. Security footage from the base gym showing them meeting in the parking lot." She opened the folder. "And this is what made me come here." She pulled out a printout, messages, hundreds of them. "Hannah's iPad syncs to the family iCloud account. I didn't mean to see them. We were working on a project, and she asked me to grab something from her tablet. But when I opened it..." Sarah's voice cracked. Sir, there are 847 messages between your wife and Captain Warren, going back 14 months. And some of them, she pulled out one message, highlighted in yellow. I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Your husband preaches about covenant. He has no idea what real passion is. When Hannah and I are married, we'll have the perfect cover. He'll never suspect his son-in-law. The words hit me like shrapnel. There's more, Sarah whispered. Sir, he told other officers at the O Club after drinks. He bragged about it. She pulled out another document. Sworn statements. Captain Mitchell from Alpha Company, Captain Torres from headquarters, 3 lieutenants. They all heard him. He said... Her voice dropped. He said he was putting the commander in his place. He called Mrs. Mitchell his conquest. He said every time you touched your combat infantry badge and talked about honor, he thought about what he was doing with your wife. My hands were gripping the edge of the desk, knuckles white. He wasn't in love with her, Sarah said. This wasn't about passion or connection or any of the things Hannah believes. It was deliberate, sir. It was about humiliating you, about proving he could take something from his commanding officer and get away with it. She pushed the folder toward me. Hannah needs to see this, all of it. She needs to know who she's about to marry. Sarah's voice was pleading. But she won't listen to me. She won't listen to you. She thinks we're both biased. But if she sees the messages herself, if she reads what he said to other officers, you want me to show her? I want you to let me show her. Sarah met my eyes. You're her father. If it comes from you, she'll think you manipulated it somehow. But if it comes from me, her friend, someone with no stake in this, maybe she'll actually read it. Maybe she'll see. I looked at the folder, at the messages, at the sworn statements, at 8 months of evidence that proved my daughter was about to marry a man who'd used her as cover to torture her father. Show her, I said, everything. Sarah called me 6 hours later. Sir, she knows. I showed her everything. The messages, the statements, the timeline. Sarah's voice was shaking. She's not doing well, sir. She read the message about using the wedding as cover. She read the statements about him bragging. Where is she? Her apartment. Sir, she broke off the engagement, threw the ring at the wall. She's been crying for 3 hours. She keeps saying, oh my God, like she can't process it. She keeps asking how she didn't see it, how she defended him, Sarah's voice broke. Sir, she wants to talk to you, but she's so ashamed. She said terrible things to you. She chose him over you. And now she knows you were telling the truth the whole time. And give her the phone. Sarah, give her the phone. There was rustling, muffled voices, then Hannah's voice, small and broken. Dad? 2 syllables, 1 word, and my heart shattered. I'm here, baby girl. Dad, She was crying, full sobs. I read the messages, all of them, 800 messages, 14 months. He called me the perfect cover. He said marrying me would give him unlimited access to you, to the house, to Mom. He said... She couldn't continue, just cried. He told his friends, she whispered. He told them he was putting you in your place. He called Mom his conquest. Like we were... Her voice rose. This was never about love. This was never about Mom being lonely or you being deployed. This was about him humiliating you. And I defended him, Dad. I called you paranoid. I said you were trying to sabotage my wedding. I laid my sword at your feet and told you that you weren't worthy of honor and... Hannah, I'm so sorry. She was sobbing now, broken. I'm so sorry, Dad. You were telling the truth. You tried to protect me. You tried to warn me. And I chose them. I chose Mom and Bradley over you. I said terrible things. I hurt you. And you were right the whole time. Baby girl, listen to me. My voice was gentle, firm. Where are you right now? My apartment. I'm coming over. Stay there. Dad, I can't face you. Not after what I said. Not after... Stay there, Hannah. I'm on my way. I hung up, grabbed my keys, and drove to my daughter's apartment at 20 miles over the speed limit. She opened the door looking destroyed. Her eyes were swollen. Her face was blotchy. She was still in uniform, but it was wrinkled, untucked. The Hannah who prided herself on military bearing was gone. In her place was a 24-year-old girl who just discovered the man she loved had been using her as a weapon. Dad. Her voice broke on the word. I stepped inside, closed the door, and she fell into my arms. She sobbed, actually sobbed. The way you cry when your whole world has collapsed, when everything you believed was a lie, when you realize you've been a pawn in someone else's game. I just held her, didn't say anything, just held my daughter while she broke apart. I defended her, Hannah said against my chest. I defended him. I chose them over you. I said you were jealous. I said you were controlling. I said... She pulled back, looked at me with devastated eyes. I called you unworthy of honor, Dad. I laid down the sword you gave me and said you weren't worthy. After everything you've done, after everything you've sacrificed, and you were just trying to protect me. Hey, I gripped her shoulders. Look at me. She did. You were protecting your mother. That's what good daughters do. You were being loyal to the man you loved. That's what good officers do. You were choosing family over accusations from a father who, let's be honest, hasn't always been there, who missed graduations and birthdays and all the moments that mattered because I was deployed. But you were telling the truth, and you were being loyal. Both things can be true, baby girl. I pulled her close again. You know what I saw when you laid that sword at my feet? I didn't see a daughter who betrayed me. I saw a daughter who loved her mother so much she was willing to stand between her and accusations. That's courage, Hannah. That's honor. You just didn't have all the information yet. She cried harder. But I said terrible things. And I forgive you, every word, every accusation, every moment. I held her tighter. Because you're my daughter, and love doesn't keep a record of wrongs. It just keeps showing up. We stood there in her apartment entryway for 10 minutes, father and daughter, both of us crying now, both of us broken by different betrayals, but held together by the one thing that still mattered. Family. Real family. The kind that survives lies because it's built on truth. Finally, Hannah pulled back, wiped her eyes, took a shaky breath. What happens now? She asked. Now? I looked at her. Now Bradley Warren faces consequences. Now your mother loses her FRG position. Now the truth comes out and everyone who believed her lies sees the evidence. Now justice happens. And us? I picked up her commissioning sword from where it was leaning against the wall, held it out to her. Now you take this back. You carry it with honor because you were loyal when you thought loyalty mattered. And now you know the difference between loyalty and enabling lies. That's wisdom, Hannah. That's what makes you worthy of this sword. She took it. The blade rang softly, that high, clear note. She looked at the engraving. HM. Duty, honor, country. Now I understand, she whispered. It's not just words. It's choosing truth when everyone you love asks you to lie. It's standing up for what's right even when it costs everything. I nodded. Now you understand. The consequences came fast after that. Bradley Warren resigned 2 days later. Faced with the choice between court-martial and other than honorable discharge, his lawyer advised resignation. He signed the papers on a Thursday afternoon. By Friday morning, he was off the base and out of the Army. Catherine lost her FRG leadership position. The battalion commander's wife, Major Rodriguez, took it over. Catherine also lost her base privileges. No more commissary, no more gym, no more medical care except emergency. She'd have to move off base within 60 days. The divorce moved forward. With the evidence of adultery and the UCMJ violations, There was no question of fault. Catherine would get a settlement, the house, some savings, continued health insurance for the baby, but the generous benefits she would have gotten after a 21-year military marriage, gone. Hannah canceled the wedding, returned gifts, sent apology notes to 200 guests. She did it all herself, said it was her responsibility, her mistake, her consequence to bear. And me? My promotion board reconvened 3 weeks later. The battalion formation was at 0800 hours on a Tuesday morning, 600 soldiers in dress uniforms. Bright spring sunshine, the kind of morning that makes you remember why you serve. Sergeant Major Hayes called the battalion to attention. "Battalion, attention!" 600 soldiers snapped to attention as one. The sound of it, boot heels clicking together, the rustle of uniforms, the unified movement, it never got old. Lieutenant General Patricia Thornton walked to the podium, looked out at the formation. "Soldiers of the 3rd Battalion," she said. Her voice carried across the field. "We're here today to recognize an officer who demonstrated the highest standards of military bearing and personal integrity. An officer who, when faced with an impossible choice, chose honor over comfort, truth over peace, and duty over personal cost." She looked at me. Lieutenant Colonel James Mitchell, front and center. I marched to the podium, saluted. She returned it. "Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell," she said formally, "your promotion board has reviewed your record, your 24 years of service, your 2 combat tours, your leadership of this battalion, and your recent actions in upholding the Uniform Code of Military Justice despite personal and professional consequences." She pulled out a document. "The board's recommendation is unanimous. You are promoted to the rank of colonel, effective immediately, with all the responsibilities and privileges that rank entails." Hayes brought forward the new rank insignia, the silver eagles that would replace my oak leaves. Patricia Thornton pinned them on my uniform herself. "Congratulations, Colonel Mitchell," she said quietly. Then louder for the formation, "Your integrity is intact, your honor is unquestioned, and your father—" She glanced at me. "Your father would be proud." The battalion erupted in applause. Not just polite applause, real applause, cheering. I could see soldiers grinning, could see Hayes with tears in his eyes, could see Hannah in the front row, in her dress uniform, wearing her commissioning sword, applauding harder than anyone. Hayes stepped to the podium, waited for silence. "Soldiers," he said. His voice was rough. "Your commander made the hardest choice an officer can make. He reported misconduct in his own family. He chose duty over comfort, honor over peace. He did it knowing it would cost him, knowing he might lose his promotion, knowing he might lose his daughter." He looked at me. "That's leadership. That's integrity. That's what it means to live by the values we swear to defend." Colonel Mitchell didn't just talk about duty, honor, country. He chose it when it cost everything. The battalion started applauding again, louder this time, and I stood there in my new rank with my daughter watching with my integrity intact, and I touched the combat infantry badge on my chest. The metal was warm now, from the sun, from my body, from 24 years of carrying it into every battle, including this one. 6 months later, on a Saturday morning in October, Hannah and I drove to Arlington National Cemetery. My father's grave was in Section 60, the section where they bury soldiers killed in Iraq and Afghanistan, where the grass is always green and the headstones are always white and the flags are always fresh. We stood in front of his headstone, Master Sergeant David Mitchell, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, killed in action, Iraq, 1994. Hannah was in her dress uniform, so was I. We'd both requested leave for this. Both needed to be here. "I never met him," Hannah said quietly. "You were 14 when he died. I wasn't born for another 10 years. "He would have loved you," I said. "Would have been so proud of you." She touched the headstone, traced the engraved letters with her fingertip. "Mom texted me yesterday. she said. She's 5 months along now, showing. She wants me to come to an ultrasound appointment. Are you going to? I think so. Hannah looked at me. She made terrible choices. She hurt you. She hurt me, but she's still my mother. And the baby didn't ask for any of this. You're right, I said. The baby's innocent. I told her I'd go, but only if she agrees to counseling, real counseling, and only if she stops making excuses. No more blaming your deployments, no more playing victim. She owns what she did. I nodded. That's fair. And I told her, Hannah's voice caught. I told her I'm building my family differently, my chosen family, people who show up, who tell the truth, who honor their word, you, Sergeant Major Hayes, Sarah, people who prove that family isn't just who you're born to, it's who stands beside you when choosing integrity costs everything. Hannah and Hannah redefined what family means, not who you're born to, but who shows up when truth matters most. If you've built your own chosen family through shared values, tell me about them in the comments. And if this story moved you, subscribe. I tell stories about integrity when it costs everything. I'll see you in the next one. We stood there in silence for a moment. Then Hannah pulled something from her pocket. Dog tags. My dog tags. The ones I'd worn for 24 years. You gave these to me last week, she said. You said it was time to pass them on, that they'd served you well, but I might need them more. Hannah, you were right. She slipped the chain over her head. The tags settled against her chest, over her uniform. I used to hate the sound of these when I was a kid, that constant jingling. It reminded me you were always preparing for war, always ready to leave. She touched the tags. They clinked softly. Clink, clink. Now I understand, she said. You are always at war, Dad. War for honor, war for truth, war for doing what's right when everyone you love asks you to look away. These don't come off because the war doesn't end. I pulled her close, held my daughter in front of my father's grave. 3 generations of soldiers, 3 generations who understood that duty, honor, country weren't just words on a monument. They were choices you made every day when it cost everything. He'd be proud of you too, Hannah whispered. Your father. He'd be proud of what you did, of what you chose. I know, I said. That's why I did it. We placed flowers on the grave, white roses, his favorite. Then we stood at attention, saluted. Master Sergeant David Mitchell, who died in Iraq with his integrity intact. Lieutenant Colonel, now Colonel James Mitchell, who survived betrayal with his integrity intact. And Second Lieutenant Hannah Mitchell, who learned the difference between loyalty and enabling lies, who learned that honor costs everything, who learned that the right choice is usually the hard one. The sun was warm on our uniforms. The dog tags jingled softly against Hannah's chest. And somewhere in the distance, I could hear the sound of taps being played for another soldier, another family learning what we'd learned, that you can lose your marriage, your promotion, your reputation, your peace. But if you keep your integrity, if you choose honor when everyone you love asks you to lie, you keep the only thing that actually matters. Hannah looked at me, at the grave, at the dog tags around her neck. Duty, honor, country, she said quietly. But this time she understood. It wasn't just words anymore. It was the difference between the person she'd been 6 months ago, defending lies because she loved the people telling them, and the person she was now, standing beside her father at her grandfather's grave, wearing dog tags that had been to war and back, carrying a sword she'd earned the right to carry, not because she'd never made mistakes, but because she'd learned from them. We walked back to the car together, father and daughter, both of us scarred, both of us changed, both of us carrying the weight of choices that had cost everything and given us back something more valuable, the truth. And in the end, the truth was enough.